Matt. So, training industry report. So we're joined by Andy, Emily, and Dave as part of this session. So let me just kind of introduce this. So we've been running the training industry report for the last 4 years, and we launched this one in February. So we launched this in February. We've closed it in April, so we've actually captured the whole of the kind of the first tranche of working from home in the COVID universe. So there's some, what I don't want to do is sit here and go through a bunch of slides and graphs that show that amazingly we're moving an awful lot of training online, and e-learning is becoming more prevalent. There's the world of no surprise. What I do want to talk to you about is the kind of the elephant in the room of the coronavirus and how that's affecting our market. So Matt, could you just click on a slide? So this report will be sent to all of the participants post Everest. So you'll all get a copy of this anyway. But so when this pops into your inbox, please do download it. Next one, Matt. But in the comment section for the report, we got an awful lot of some positive, but a lot of the feeling from the market was it was going to be a negative experience. So what I'd like to do is kind of bring in our kind of guest speakers in the panel in this one, and and ask them their view of the universe, what their first feelings were 2 months ago when this first kicked off, and kind of get a flavour for while they're introducing for themselves. So if they give us a flavour of what 2 months ago felt like, that would be super. So take the presentation out of the way, Matt, so we can see our faces a bit more, if you don't mind. Marvellous. Who's catching this one first? Emily, do you want to volunteer?
Certainly can. Sounds like I was kind of volunteered there actually, but yeah, I'll take this one. Can you hear me clearly?
Perfect.
Good, marvellous. So good afternoon or evening, morning from wherever you're attending from. My name's Emily Ness. I'm the Head of Sales and Training at the United Kingdom Accreditation Service. And we are the national accreditation body for the UK. So we assess organisations that provide certification and testing, inspection and calibration services here in the UK. Our training division is dedicated to supporting our customers at every stage of their journey towards accreditation. So it's kind of a smaller part of a larger business. So to set the scene a little bit, where were we 2 months ago? It has been quite a journey. We're a relatively small team. And before COVID, as a training business, we were yet to properly explore virtual learning or e-learning, even though both delivery methodologies were quite high on the development agenda. Our core training business is very much face-to-face, always has been. We weren't really intending on changing that core at any point in the near future. But we tend to deliver more public training in kind of hotels, training centres across the UK. Towards the end of February, we all of a sudden started getting very last-minute cancellations for a lot of our courses, largely due to company travel restrictions rather than government guidance at the time. But within a week, I think it was, we had to press pause on all training events because lockdown started to begin. So we very quickly, I do remember it was on a Sunday, we had to go through all of the proposals that we could consider. Do we postpone all of the training until further notice? Do we use existing platforms within the business that we have already, Zoom, Skype, Teams or equivalent? Or do we take this opportunity to invest time and effort in the short term to redevelop our courses for delivery on a system that's designed for virtual instructor-led training? And do we really aim to recreate our face-to-face training in a virtual format? At the time, the outlook was incredibly uncertain, and it was difficult to argue the case for investment to myself, let alone any of the budget holders. And we weren't sure how many customers would cancel courses, how many would furlough staff, how many people would even be in the market for training at all over the coming months. And I'm incredibly glad that we did make the decision we did at the time, when we were really unsure about what the success of the project was going to look like. But we'll be talking a little more about the route that we took shortly. And that's me. Over to Andy for his introduction.
Go, Andy.
Okay, thanks, Emily. With regards to the poll, I'm in my kitchen in sunny North Yorkshire. My name's Andy Shanks. I'm the business system manager for a company called ESS Safeforce. We deal with the rental, sale and servicing of specialist safety survey, communications and test and measurement equipment, but also have a training division, which is why I'm here. We mainly do confined space safety training, ROSPA and City and Guilds, but also do things like working at height, new roads and street works, first aid, Cat and Jenny, etc. But the confined space training forms the bulk of our training business. We train roughly 15,000 delegates a year in 10 locations up and down the country, from Aberdeen in the north of Scotland down to Exeter in the southwest. All the training is done face to face and is classroom based. We've never done e-learning or webinar training, which in hindsight, well, and we will occasionally visit customers, but it's mainly in our locations. With regards to the events of, what is it now, 8 weeks ago now, is it? It's absolutely unprecedented, and there's no rule book in place with regards to how to deal with this. I doubt any company's had any kind of disaster recovery plan to deal with it, and it's been a case of thinking on your feet and being reactive. And I think that includes our government as well, to be quite honest. But things have changed at an absolutely incredible pace from almost a daily basis. But so the sort of week before the government announcement, we did notice, as Emily did as well, a raft of cancellations and also no shows from people on courses. So it was obvious then something was happening. When the government announcement came on the Sunday, it sort of became obvious that we couldn't continue to train our customers in the same way we'd been doing, because we just couldn't operate within the workplace and the social distancing guidelines. We also, the 10 locations are also shared locations with the rest of our business. So we, at that from the Monday, we stopped any outside visitors coming into our locations to maintain the safety of our staff who continue to work and who continue working in terms of, delivering stuff to customers, delivery drivers, managers, preparing kit, servicing kit, that kind of stuff. So, there was no way we could carry on face-to-face training from that point. And that's when the sort of cancellations really ramped up from that Monday. So we basically cancelled all courses for the remainder of March and informed customers. As things gathered along, we then cancelled all courses for April and informed customers. And most of our training staff were furloughed, with just a small admin team dealing with customer inquiries and keeping in touch with customers, and sort of explaining that we would be back up and running as soon as we possibly could do.
That's a humongous impact, Andy.
Sorry?
That's a humongous impact to actually furlough pretty much everybody.
Yes. Yeah, it's the normal thing for people now, though. It's a word nobody would sort of ever heard of up to like 8 weeks ago.
Yeah.
I know it's probably the most used word in the British language for the last 8 weeks, to be quite honest. Oh. So, in the meantime, we've obviously had chance to revisit our business plan, because the business plan for the year was out of the window, the budget was out of the window, revenue prediction was out of the window. So we've taken a chance to rethink our business plan, look more towards e-learning in terms of the theoretical part of our courses. There's still a practical part of the course which you cannot do as e-learning, so we're still going to have to do face-to-face practical training, but e-learning we think can go to an option. And we're also planning for the return when that happens, which I shall mention the next bit for the next 2 months.
Brilliant, thank you. Dave.
Yeah, thanks, Tony. Yeah, so I'm Dave Evans. I'm the managing director at accessplanit. So we actually come from a training background. So accessplanit started life as a training company. We're now a software company. We develop a platform, all-in-one platform that helps training companies become more productive and gives them greater control of their day-to-day operations. We typically do that by helping them solve some of the challenges and chaos around cost scheduling, administration, registration, and marketing. So we're also the company behind Everest and the training industry report. So I'm not here to talk about accessplanit and software. We're more here to talk about the unique insights that we've had from speaking to hundreds of training companies over the last couple of months. In terms of how we felt when it first happened, I mean, to tell you the truth, I think to us it came as, or to me it came as a bit of a shock and a surprise when we got the announcement on the Monday that we're working from home. I think we obviously knew it was coming, but until it actually happened, I don't think there's anything really can prepare you for how it's going to feel and the next steps. Like Andy said, there's no playbook for this kind of thing. You plan for every scenario, but pandemic has never been something that has been on the radar. So it came as a bit of a shock to us. In terms of what our first week looked like, we were very fortunate. We could go fully remote within hours. I think the government announced work from home at about 5:30 on the Monday. And by 9:30 on the Tuesday, we were fully remote, and it was, to a large extent, it was just business as usual for us. I think as the next couple of weeks panned out, obviously we're talking to a lot of training companies. We see some of the stats and data that goes behind them businesses. And it was horrifying. Really. You're seeing cancellations, you're hearing about training centres closing, and you're having a lot of conversations with people who are really worried. At the same time, we're worried about our team. I think as a business owner, you kind of got a sense of loss. I think it was. You kind of got big plans for the future. You're worried about where the business is going. You're kind of worried where the last 15 years' work's gonna go. And then, the following week, schools and things were closed. You worry about your family. You worry about having three young kids running around the house. How are you going to work? How are you going to do the homeschool and all that kind of thing? So it's been a bit of a journey for us. Obviously, very different to training companies, in so much as we haven't had to make any massive changes. We've made a small number of furloughs, but for us, we've had customers who have needed our support. So we're very much focused on. Trying to focus on positives, looking after customers and being helpful.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you. Matt, because I don't want to press the poll button, can we run a little poll? One of the questions that we didn't ask as part of the training industry benchmark report, because we weren't kind of thinking it was a major priority when we first kicked it off, was to thanks, David. Was to ask the question about what online training tool are you guys using most. So if you could fire that poll into everyone, that would be great if you could do that, Matt. So thank you. Right. So I suppose next question. I suppose we've had your feelings about what the last 2 months was going to feel like, and all that kind of initial sound off. How have you actually found the last couple of months? A kind of what's changed in your business, and also what has been your go-to conferencing and training tool, since we're asking the audience that one. So where shall we go first? Emily, would you mind going first again?
No, not at all. That's absolutely fine. So there are a number of questions there. So how has the business changed? What have we done? How have we kind of prepared for what's to come, or future-proofed the business? So going back to the three options that we had, or the three main options, the proposals that we could put forward, we ended up going down the route of trying to reconstruct the training into virtual instructor led, using Adobe Connect learning. We did a lot of reviews. We looked at all of the downsides to all of the online conferencing tools. Most of them are designed for webinars, meetings, Zoom, Skype, Teams. They're all those kind of meeting platforms. And from what I could see, Adobe Connect was going to be the best platform to actually simulate face-to-face training. Now, we're quite fortunate in that, unlike Andy, our entire courses are theory largely. So there are workshops, there are exercises, but delegates are taking notes. They're not having to do anything too practical or hold items or be in confined spaces or anything like that. We can actually simulate the training properly virtually. So we went for Adobe, and as I said, I am incredibly glad that we did go down this route, because it's been a tremendous amount of work and time and effort, and I'm not going to pretend it's been easy at all to convert all of our courses, but we're now in a position 2 months in to deliver everything virtually between now and the end of the year, and we haven't seen a drop off to delegate bookings. If anything, it's the reverse. We're getting more bookings now than we got on the face-to-face courses. Delegates on furlough are still looking to attend training for their CPD points and things like that, and that's largely the industry that we're in, but we can now deliver the service to our clients. And I'm also delighted that we're using Adobe rather than perhaps Teams or Skype, because although I've not tried to use those platforms for training, we have had outstanding feedback on the virtual courses and a higher net promoter score than I've ever seen in commercial training management, and that's simply for our virtual training business. So I'm glad we did it. I don't think we could have done it without Adobe as a tool, because it does allow you to simulate that experience. But now, who knows really when we're going to go back to face-to-face training. I think we have to brace ourselves that the idea of having 20 delegates in a room in a hotel for 3 days is not going to be advisable for quite a long period of time. So at least we're set and the business is protected until then.
Thank you, Emily. And when I first started talking to Emily, it's the first time that any of the Adobe Connect had popped into my repertoire of things to look at as their remote tools. Dave, I suppose last 2 months compared to your initial feelings, how accessplanit coped?
Yeah, I guess like any business, we've seen a decline in new business. So certainly, the number of clients we're assigning, the number of opportunities that we're moving forward, that's obviously changed. Customers are struggling. I think from an operational perspective, as I said before, we went fully remote in a number of hours. I think for us, we've tried to keep as many things normal. I know normal isn't, kind of definition of normal's changed now. But for us, we've tried to keep the routines and the cadences and things that we had before the lockdown in place. So we have the same sort of meetings. We still set goals. We changed that slightly, in as much as we set quarterly goals. This time we set a combination of kind of short term and longer term goals, just because you've no idea where things are going. Like Tony said, we've done things like socials, quizzes, wind downs. So we've put a lot of focus on the team health, making sure the team are productive, happy. Obviously mindful we've got some members of the team who are maybe living at home on their own, and they've not really seen anybody over a period of time. We've also continued with things like our internal training. So we've done the same as you guys. We've moved that online, and that's worked really well for us. I suppose for us, we had our first quarterly planning session. It was about a week after lockdown. I think when we went into that, we kind of asked ourselves 2 questions: is how can we come out of it stronger, that's possible, and how can we be helpful? How can we be helpful to customers and to the industry? I think for us, that's been a massive thing for us, was just that kind of mindset of being helpful and having positive things happening on a frequent basis has really helped us. I mean, yeah, the Everest conference as an example. I think originally we'd planned 2 local events where maybe we'd have had 20 or 30 customers attending. Yeah, probably that would have taken 4 or 5 months to organise. And we made a call about 4 weeks ago to launch an online virtual summit, and we've had 700 registrations in about 2 weeks. So I think a lot of positivities come out of that. We've done webinars, and I think just that kind of being helpful to people. Obviously, generating new business is not really a thing at the moment. I think if you can be helpful, we've taken a lot of positives out of that. We've developed new relationships. We've helped people in ways that perhaps we didn't think we could have done. So I think that's been a major thing for us. In terms of what's changed, as we've gone remote, I think if we wanted to, we could probably stay remote. I think there's been some positives. Obviously, you miss that kind of face-to-face interaction with people, but remote has probably been a good thing for us in some ways. We've definitely found that we've become more agile. We're making decisions quicker. We're making things happen a lot quicker. So there's been a major positive in that respect. In terms of what we've seen across the industry, I mean, we've seen a lot of different things. We speak to some training providers. Some providers have been incredibly innovative. They've done things that have really surprised us. Some are actually thriving. It's hard to believe, but some are doing well under the circumstances. Obviously, in the main part, we're seeing a lot of cancellations. We're seeing our customers, widespread furloughs, reductions in bookings, some closing down, some fearing for the future. A lot of variances in the way people are structuring courses. Some people are running 1-day sessions totally online. Others are breaking that down into kind of bite-sized chunks, maybe 4 2-hour sessions over a 4-week period. And we're kind of seeing different ways people are needing to change processes to accommodate that. We're seeing others who are maybe taking the online sessions as an opportunity. So whereas some providers are quite regionalised or maybe constrained by where they have venues, we're seeing some providers going online and taking on clients nationally, even internationally. So I think again there's been some positives in that. So we've seen quite a diverse range of things. I think more recently we've actually seen some centres start to reopen. So I think Andy said before, they started business again yesterday. So there are some positive things starting to emerge.
Thanks, Dave. Andy, did we hear that right then? You've started business again?
Didn't quite catch that.
Sorry. Sorry, did I hear that right? You've started back up in business again?
Yes, we started yesterday. I mean, from sort of week commencing the 11th, we'd noticed some inquiries from customers sort of generally ramping up and asking us, whether we were going to start courses again and, and when they could attend them. We obviously had to take a step back from that and do a complete risk assessment of all our locations and concentrate on the safety of the delegates, our employees who are in the branch anyway, and trainers. So it obviously became, as people have said so far, we normally put probably 12 people on a course, and that's a complete non-starter now with workplace and social distancing. So we can't even use all our locations because there just isn't the room either in the training area we would use, or there's chances of people crossing in corridors too close. There's small toilet or breakout facilities. So, some of our locations are being completely taken off for the time being. But the bigger locations, we've done risk assessments and we can do a course for a maximum of probably 5 people on that course.
Yep.
So we had a course yesterday in the south of England for 5. No, I think it was 4, that one. No, 5, and one today I think for 5 as well in the north. So it's very, very slowly coming back. But there's, we've had to completely changed the way we do things. You know, the delegates now get a health screening questionnaire as they arrive, and they've got to fill that in. You know, they're greeted at the door of our premises rather than allowed to come in, sign a book and go in a breakout area. You know, they're kept outside, greeted by the trainer. They're issued with PPE in terms of masks and gloves and that kind of things. We've had to include COVID-19 as part of the instructions of the course and remind delegates of their responsibilities and responsibilities for the safety. We can't put on food anymore for courses because we put a finger buffet on generally, which again now is a complete no-no. So we're asking delegates to bring their own food. Even things where we would issue pens or pads to people, you know, you've got to be careful that they're put in the bin after you've finished the course and not used again and that kind of stuff. It's when we started going through the risk assessments, it was quite incredible the amount of stuff it sort of brought up in terms of you probably hadn't thought of that in the past, but now we need to think about it. You know.
Well, I suppose from the outside looking in, you know, a company like yourself delivering the confined space training again, I think is a humongous positive thing. But actually, then when you I think that's amazing for the market. It means that we can start looking at it. But that piece of the risk assessment and you can't share the pencils, actually, you just wouldn't normally think to that level, would you? So, yeah, everyone's got to bring their own lunch. It's a completely different way of delivering training. So, yes, thank you for that.
Yeah, totally different.
Yeah. The Matt survey. What's our favourite tool? As Adobe Connect leapt up the charts.
Yeah, so the Adobe Connect is surprisingly low, actually. I believe it won't be after this, though. So I'll end the poll and I'll share the results with everyone as well. But well ahead, I think it's quite obvious as well with publicity. I think everyone's done a quiz on this at some point over the last few weeks, if not every single week, friends. Zoom storming ahead there, 70%. Followed by Microsoft Teams again. You can't miss Microsoft Teams. They're running adverts every day as well. GoToMeeting, one of the leaders in the industry as well, still staying strong. But yeah, Adobe Connect down there was 6%.
Oh dear. Matt, do you reckon we're going to have time to we're not going to have time to do the next. We're going to do another quiz, but we shall skip it because what I do want to do before, as we've got Dave, Emily, and Andrew with us, what I wanted to do was just get them to give us a quick taster on what they see as the next 3 months looking like, and anything as a recommendation to our listeners or webinarists, if there's a right word for that, attendees, for what they could potentially do for their business. So, Dave, do you want to go first on this one?
Yeah, no worries. Yes, I think, for us, I think what's going to change is we're starting to have more conversation. Yeah, historically we have conversations with training companies who are looking to grow. I think now conversations are switching from growth to productivity, efficiency, trying to streamline processes. In terms of what we're seeing in the market, what do we expect to see in 3 months? It's a difficult one. I don't think anybody really knows what's going to happen next week, let alone over the next 3 months. But I think there's been some quite interesting conversation and pieces that we've picked up from different companies, probably more questions than answers. Obviously, questions around kind of logistics, organising classrooms. It's going to be interesting to see how providers cope running classroom courses when maybe you'd have 10 people, 20 people, and you drop that down to 5 or 10. There's certainly been some discussions around kind of pricing, pricing competition, whether you charge more to try and make up for having less delegates, or whether it's going to be people are going to be charging less. I think obviously what comes with that is kind of the quality issue. Mm-hmm. So providing training and also providing good quality training. We've also had conversations with some people about kind of what next. I think we spoke as a panel yesterday, and Emily called it a bow wave. So there's kind of a feeling that at some point things will return to a semi normal state, and so maybe there will be an influx of requests for training. So I think providers will then be kind of have the challenge of how do we provide more training in smaller classrooms quicker. So I think there's probably a lot more challenges and questions than there are answers. Yeah. I think what I think will happen is probably over the next 3 or 6 months, we'll probably see more change in the training industry than maybe we've seen in the last 20 or 30 years.
Definitely agree. Andy, what's the view from ESS?
It's definitely accelerated our plans to go ahead with offering e-learning for the theory part of the course. So we'll be looking in the future, and we're starting now to look at blended learning, where the theory is e-learning, a webinar, and the actual practical is going to stay as a face-to-face course. I think the small class sizes are going to be the norm now for, well, I'll be optimistic and say the autumn stroke towards the end of 2020. So, you know, Dave mentioned there in terms of prices and courses, I think if we start to say, oh, well, it's a smaller class size, do you mind paying more for it? That's isn't going to go down well, and isn't going to happen. So I think, you know, I think everyone's going to see a shrinking in revenue in terms of that. One quite interesting thing we're getting is in the sort of catch-up calls with the staff who are still working in our sales admin team with our customers. They're still saying that there's a lot of their employees who would probably be requiring training and coming up to require training are still being furloughed. So there is a sort of feeling that there may be a bit of a floodgate opening soon, whereas a lot of people come back off furlough requiring training, but we can't have the large class sizes. So it could be interesting in terms of, you know, if that all happens at once, could be an interesting time for the industry. And, you know, it's just changing daily, weekly. It's just a case of, you know, keeping on top of things and making sure we are prepared for when things change. Yeah, if the distancing rule becomes 1 meter, not 2 meters, that will change things. You know, yeah, that kind of stuff.
That's brilliant. Thank you, Andy.
Yeah.
Emily, what's UKAS's view on the universe?
On the universe, that's a big one. On the training universe, I think from our perspective, we've got to the point now, as I said, where we can basically deliver like for like our entire schedule, our calendar. So we intend to do that over the next 3 months with the same levels of participants, with all of the same exercises and group work running through the system. As Dave was saying, one thing that we are really keen to do now that we're at this point is start generating a lot of e-learning content for our customers free of charge to support them in this kind of hour of need, because there's a huge amount that we can do, but again, we're not set up as such to start doing that as a training provider. So a lot of work has gone into really kickstarting those e-learning projects over the last few weeks, and we're hoping to start releasing those into the next 4 to 6 weeks, and sort out the learning management system and get everything up on there for the customers, and do a lot more webinars and that kind of thing as well. But that's really because our training business now is very stable, and we're still providing the same level of service to the customers as we were before, and they still have the same options that they had 2 months ago. It's just now they attend from the bedroom or a sun lounger or the kitchen or wherever it is. So yeah, no one really knows when we're going to be able to go properly back to face-to-face delivery, but I think because our business the training is very theoretical, that we would be in no rush, and certainly our customers would be in no rush to all gather together in a room again. So I think we've got to brace ourselves for the longer term. This is probably going to run at least until the end of the year, if not past that. And virtual is now an excellent delivery methodology that we will continue to utilize for years to come. We're already talking about more international business. So yeah, that's it.
Okay, thank you very much. Matt, have we got some I know that we are probably out of time. Before we say thank you to everyone, is there any key questions that we could do with getting an opinion on from the team?
Yeah, there's a question that's come up a few times in here, and I think this is particularly pertinent at the moment. It also appeared on pretty much every webinar we ran with regards to transition online and coronavirus, which is, and I think it's the hot topic at the moment in the training industry. When you transfer a course from face-to-face online, what happens to the price? Do you reduce the price for online? Do you increase the price? Where does the price go with regards to an online course? So for Emily and Andy, in terms of what you've done for those courses that are transitioned online, have you kept the price the same? Have you reduced or have you increased?
So I can take this one. Because you're largely using the same resources, you're using the same trainers, also virtual training normally needs a host, so a member of the training team that guides the trainers through the course and deals with all of the breakout rooms. So you're looking at investing extra resource into every course that you're delivering. The customers are charged less effectively, they don't have travel expenses. For all of our delegates, when we switched them to virtual, we actually had very few who expected a price reduction at all. So we did reduce the prices, but we only reduced them by 10%, which is equivalent to what we would be paying the venues, really. So day delegate rates, lunches, that kind of thing. But all of the other expenses stay the same, if not go up a little bit. So 10% reduction, but we had no queries at that price range.
That's brilliant, thank you. Can we make sure, Matt, that we ask that same question to the Sales Geek guys tomorrow? Because I'm with Emily on this one. You guys are delivering exactly the same value to your customers. It's exactly the same service. It's just that you're not in the same room. So besides the sandwich break at lunchtime, everything else is the same. They're still getting the same value, and it's the same importance that you guys are delivering. I'd hate, just because of Corona, we start devaluing the amazing work that's going on out there. So just to bring this to the close, because we've got we do have a rolling program here. So I want to say thank you to Emily, thank you Andy, thank you Dave for joining us. Matt, do you want to just say goodbye and introduce what's coming next?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you guys for taking the time out of your day to run this first session with us. So next up in our Everest Virtual Summit, we have a fantastic training company from London who will be speaking to us about managing staff happiness and well-being during a crisis. This is going to be led by Henry Stewart, who is the Chief Happiness Officer, and the company is called Happy Limited. And that will be kicking off at 4 o'clock. It'll be a great session. I've sat on many of Henry's webinars, and they're always fantastic. So that will be kicking off at 4 o'clock. You can use the same link to join, and we'll be kicking off shortly, and we'll leave this webinar open and running. So thank you very much for joining, everyone. There has been a number of questions in the Q&A as well that we haven't been able to get to. Quite a few on Emily's experience with Adobe Connect. So we'll be coming back to people on that and sharing some more knowledge after the sessions. Also, with regards to a few comments regarding recordings and slides, we will be sharing content on our AccessPlanit Everest site following the running of the conference. So that will be in the preceding few weeks after the conference. So we'll be sharing content following the conclusion.
Brilliant. Thank you, Matt.
Okay.
Thanks very much, everyone.
Thank
guys.
you.
Everyone.
Thank you.